Hello, ladies. You are welcome to another edition of Dear Younger Mom, our intentional parenting program, where we equip ourselves with the tools to nurture in the nature of God. And of course, our key tool is the Bible. We have look at principles that are rooted in Scripture. Today, we're going to be talking about feelings. All right. I remember last semester, my daughter calling me from college. That was just her first semester, and she had this exam that was coming up, and then she got her period. And she was just so frustrated because she was having cramps, and she called me and she was telling me about how she needed to get ready for this exam, and how with what was going on with the cramping. And asked her if she had taken her medication. She said yes. But how our menstrual periods can be. It's not just the cramping. There could be, of course, hormonal things that are going on. And she was crying. And so I told her, yeah, I know how that feels like, because I do know how that feels like, right? And I encouraged her and prayed with her, and then she went and, was able to later on get to study. And of course, she did the exam. Now, I didn't get to that just like that. I thought back, as I was, after that incident, I was thinking back to perhaps how I may have responded, in earlier years. I can actually remember her calling me out on that. I've talked to us before about what we do on Saturdays when the children, were here and they were growing up. We had what we call Speak Up Saturdays, okay? And I can remember one of those times she said, just reflecting back on when she was much younger, talking about how they would come to me with something, they were feeling a certain way or something had happened and they were crying. And the first thing I would say, have you prayed about it? Okay, I am just, I had to grow from that typical Nigerian mom who everything is, I know everything is about prayer, yes, but when people feel a certain way, that's not where to start from. The first thing to do is to acknowledge the feeling. If somebody, for instance, feels rejected, maybe a classmate had a party and did not invite them, and they come to you feeling rejected. It's not to begin to beat them over the head with, this is what God says about you. Yes, what God says about them is very important. But at that time, in that moment, when they come to you, what they need is somebody who can identify with that feeling that they're feeling at that time, and somebody who can validate that. So feelings are legitimate and they don't negate faith. Right? You feel a certain way. If somebody said something to you that was hurtful, then you feel hurt. Right? If someone was mean to you, you feel like somebody did something bad to you. And there's a feeling that comes with that. Right? And so we have feelings because we're human. Let me read to us a scripture. I'm reading from Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15. I want to read from the Amplified. It's a familiar scripture, but take a listen. It says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize and understand our weaknesses and temptations, but one who has been tempted, knowing exactly how it feels." I want you to, how it feels to be human. Being human comes with having feelings. So we have emotions. And so what the child needs when they come to you, bringing that piece of information to you about what's going on with them, what they need at that time is not that you dismiss the feelings or that you mandate them not to feel that way. I honestly, some of us, Nigerian moms, especially, I'm calling all of us out, you can't tell a child not to feel a certain way. You can't mandate a feeling, okay? So you can't tell somebody to just get out of it. So somebody's feeling a certain way, first of all, is to acknowledge the feeling. And then when they know that, okay, I hear you, I see you, I know what it feels like, then we can then begin to address it. So that's my appeal to us, as moms. Be that person who can have that shared moment with them, because that's what they need. Think about it. If you're pregnant and you wanted to talk to somebody about how you're feeling, are you going to go talk to a man who has never been pregnant and never will be pregnant? You want to talk to somebody, another woman who has been pregnant, and somebody who you feel can sympathize with you. Now, if there's an issue to be prayed over, if there's something to be addressed, yes, that will happen. But the first thing is to first acknowledge and validate the feeling, because the feeling is legitimate, however it is that the person feels. And so that's what I want to bring to us today concerning our children. Because if you don't validate the feelings, if you don't acknowledge them, if you're dismissive about them, or you're mandating them not to feel that way, they can't relate to you. They feel like you can't relate to what they're feeling, and they're not going to come to you again. You begin to shut down that communication pathway. But when they know that, like Christ, you're touched with the feelings of their infirmities, that you felt this way before, because all of us have felt the way, whatever way they're feeling as they're growing, we get to experience the entire range of emotions. Okay? And that's what they want to know, that you know what it is like to feel that way. So let's acknowledge, let's validate before we begin to address. All right. I hope this has been helpful for you. I will see you at the next episode. Be blessed.